To learn the good, the bad, and the reality of the off-grid lifestyle, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. I'm standing in my mom's backyard right now. Small town, middle of Missouri, in between Kansas City and St. Louis on Highway 70. Just a small town. I don't even know how many there is, maybe 5,000 people here. I actually lived up the road about 15 miles, and that town had 100 people in it. It was actually called a village. These little towns are real nice. You know, look at this fence. Usually, you don't have that many nosy neighbors. Every town's got them, though. I mean, when I lived in that town, my neighbor, he was in everybody's business. Yeah, he wouldn't let surveyors come out, and you know, he was just a troublemaker. But these little towns, you know, they don't interfere with your business too terribly much. These kind of little backyards like this in these small towns are great for backyard farmers. And I feel like, and I know this is silly, but I feel like I invented the term backyard farmer. 15 years ago, you never really heard of anybody raising ducks and chickens and goats and sheep in the backyard. But I had started doing that way back then, and I didn't know anybody that did it. Well, it wasn't very long after that, my neighbor got some chickens, and he did raccoon watch. He was having problems with raccoons, so he would trap the raccoons and take them out to the conservation area. Not sure if you can hear this, but this is an example of a backyard farm. Right over here behind the bushes, there's ducks, and just on the other side of that is a couple chickens. They don't make a lot of noise. They're kind of neat to listen to. And really the only time they make noise is if somebody comes around and disturbs them. They think they're going to get fed. She's had these ducks for, I don't know, 5-10 years at least. Now in past videos I said that I may not do backyard farming again. If I do, it probably would just be chickens, maybe ducks. As far as getting sheep and goats, or even a pig, I'm not too sure I want to do that again. I recognize off-grid living, what everybody's dream is, get, a big garden and animals. Now, a garden sounds good to me. I will probably plant a cornfield, a very significant size cornfield, and we'll probably do 2 plantings a year because you can do an early planting and a late planting. And then we can can that corn. I enjoy doing that. Corn grows pretty easy. Tomatoes is another thing that we'll do. Now, tomatoes, in my opinion, are a lot harder to grow than corn. They're susceptible to diseases. The last batch I bet I had 24, 30 plants, and they got this fungus. They did produce tomatoes, but not a lot. But I don't know if I'll get sheep and goats again. Rabbits, I definitely won't get rabbits. And here's the reason. The primary reason is food cost. First of all, we want to do off-grid living. And so I need to find something that I can live off-grid with. Sheep and goats take a lot of on-grid stuff. You got to go buy their grains and their foods. And, my mind goes back to, okay, if we're going to off-grid, why am I going and buying all these things? Now, the other issue is sheep. I never had any luck with sheep. Goats I had a lot of luck with. Well, we actually had pygmy goats, and we milked the pygmy goats. But the sheep, I just had no luck with. 2 or 3 different sheep that we had. I think we had 2 mothers that had little lambs. And then the mother died right after birth. So the mother didn't get to feed the little baby sheep. Well, what happens is they get this condition called bloat if they don't get the mother's milk. And so both of the little baby sheep that we had got bloat and died. Goats are a possibility, but again, you got to go buy the food. Or you got to raise the food. And we only have 1.5 acres, so I don't know if that's really an option for us. So, we're going to stay away from all that. Pigs, maybe, would be an option. A female pig, of course, you still got to buy the food, but they eat a lot of stuff. They'll eat scraps, so it may be possible that we could give them the corn and different things. But, this is so far down the road before we get into that kind of farming. Now, a cow, I have thought about a cow. And just let the cow graze. That would be the most ideal thing for us. And then, you buy a little baby cow in the spring and butcher it in the fall, right before the acorns come out, because if cows eat acorns, they can get sick. Rabbits, on the other hand, man, the same thing with sheep. Rabbits, I really didn't have a lot of luck with. they just ended up costing so much, and we didn't get much out of them in return. When you go buy rabbits, you'll buy a little baby one, then you got to raise it for a year before it can have babies, and then it has babies, and every mother that we had ate the first litter. And so we were feeding these rabbits, lots of money in food, rabbit feed, and we weren't getting much out of in return for them. I think in the 2 years that I raised rabbits, I actually got 1 litter that I was able to eat. Now, the advantage to having chickens is you don't have to feed them as much. Of course, now when I lived in town, I had to buy feed for them. They require quite a bit of feed, but there was not a lot of free ranging they could do. So when you're doing backyard farming, the feed costs go up because there's just not a lot of bugs and things. Now, when Carolyn and I lived down on the 8 acres, I let them free range all day long. We'd go to work, I'd let them loose in the morning, and they would free range, eat all day, and then I'd put them away at night. I'd give them food, but rarely did they eat much of it. The advantage is it's so much more healthy than buying food from the store. I read an article today that humans are building up a tolerance to penicillins. And one of the reasons that we're building a tolerance to that is because we keep putting penicillins into our animals. And then we eat the animals, and then of course we eat the penicillin, which is a real problem because if we need penicillin for an ear infection, and we go to the doctor and they give us penicillin and it won't work. Infections and viruses are going to become more problematic because we can't take these penicillins. And they put all kinds of different chemicals in your animals. So when you backyard farm, you don't have those chemicals. And especially if you can free range. I ate a steak that free ranged. It was raised on grass fields, that's all it ate. Oh, was that the best steak I've ever had. Oh my goodness. Here's the problem with backyard farming, is the farmer doesn't necessarily respect the rights of the neighbors. I'm sure you've seen in the background here, there's neighbors. And they're everywhere. So if we would put chickens back here, a rooster, and it made a bunch of noise, of course they're going to complain. Now, I told you about the neighbor I had earlier in this video where he was just mean to everybody. At one time he said, "I'm the sheriff in town, and you're going to listen to what I say," or something to that effect. I mean, he was just a bully. An old guy, just thought he knew everything. Well, he lived right next door to me. As a matter of fact, he sold me the house. I didn't realize how grumpy he was until after, 6 months of living there. I knew he would complain if we had noisy animals, so we didn't get roosters or anything that made a lot of noise. And, believe it or not, he never did complain, except once. We were trying to wean a kid, from his mother. The mother just went nuts. I mean, absolutely nuts. We brought the little kid inside, and we were going to sell the kid. And so we were trying to teach it to be a pet. I mean, it was a pygmy goat. You can raise these things to be pets. Well, we didn't notice that the mom was going ballistic. And sure enough, police come over, knocking on the door, saying the neighbor's complaining about the goat. And he says, "There's nothing I can do about it because we don't have any ordinances in place to make you do anything about it. But I just thought maybe you'd want to try to quiet it down." And so, of course, we put the kid back, and mom was happy and everything was fine. But that shows you that grumpy neighbors are going to do whatever they can to stop you from being free to do what you want on your own property. But that being said, you also have to be responsible with your own rights. Just read an article this morning about Michigan. Now, this is an older article. People send me these articles, and I try to share them with you so you're aware of them. But back in 2014, Michigan basically erased its right to backyard farming. The Commission of Agriculture and Rural Development removed protections from backyard farms. Now, you cannot have a backyard farm if there are 13 homes within 1/8 of a mile of your backyard farm. Well, I just showed you ducks right over there, right behind that building, or the ducks. I mean, I can count 13 homes real easy. There's a lot of homes within 1/8 of a mile here. So I would imagine there's 20 or 30 of them. Another requirement they put was if the residence is within 200 feet of another home. So even if you don't have 13 homes, that backyard farm is within 250 feet of another house. This really highlights the importance of respecting your neighbor's rights just as much as they respect your rights. So don't get chickens and say, okay, I'm gonna get a rooster. Respect your neighbor's rights, and so we all can continue to eat healthier and more independently. So thanks for watching.